Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jeff, and this is Not Just Book Reviews. And today I'm going to be talking about an Ian Fleming novel on Her Majesty's Secret Service, which is the second in the Blofeld trilogy, preceded by Thunderball and followed by You Only Live Twice. So I have been a James Bond fan for most of my life, but the film, The James Bond, I've never read an Ian Fleming novel until a few weeks ago. I was watching another booktuber, the Rambling Raconteur, who's fantastic. He's read just about everything there is. He's very good. And he did a bookshelf tour, and he went through every James Bond novel and did a brief blurb on this one was good, this one wasn't great. I think he's read them all. And I was fascinated at the moment to think, wow, I've never read a James Bond novel. Maybe I should. So for whatever reason, I dove into this one. I wasn't getting too picky. I thought, let me just pick one and go. So I did on Her Majesty's Secret Service. It was written in 1963. And let's just jump right in. I'll do a non-spoiler review of this, and then I may talk about some spoilery things later on, but I will let everyone know when that happens. Wonderful opening, by the way. I was surprised by Fleming, how much I enjoyed his writing, how much I enjoyed the book. And this opening is wonderful. You join James Bond as he's sitting on a beach, and he's in the same French town where Casino Royale takes place. Actually, Casino Royale is, I think he's staying there, actually. And he's watching a woman on the beach, and there's something about her, or what he knows about her. When she gets up to walk towards the water, he thinks that she's going to try to do herself in. So he gets up to follow her, and at the water, he's taken by several men with guns. They put him into a Zodiac of some kind, and her and the girl are sped away, and they quickly go upriver. So this is taking place on the Mediterranean. Again, the Casino Royale is on, the French Riviera, I think. And so that starts it. So I'll just share some prose of Ian Fleming. He's a wonderful, wonderful writer, and his prose is sort of on the level of Graham Greene, John le Carré. This is not Robert Ludlum. This is not, Vince Flynn. This isn't trashy spy stuff. This is really good English sentences, crisp, flowing, very lyrical. I just want to read you one paragraph. So Bond is just sitting on the beach as he's watching Tracy. And this is Fleming. Quote, "The sun was getting lower. Already one could smell the September chill that all day had lain hidden beneath the heat. The cohorts of bathers were in quick retreat, striking their little camps and filtering up the steps and across the promenade into the shelter of the town where the lights were going up in the cafes. The announcer at the swimming pool harried his customers. Silhouetted in the path of the setting sun, the two bombard rescue boats with flags bearing a blue cross on a yellow background were speeding northwards for their distant shelter upriver in the viewport. The last of the gay giraffe-like sand yachts fled down the distant waterline towards its corral among the sand dunes, and the three agents cyclists in charge of the car parks pedaled away through the melting ranks of cars towards the police station in the center of town. In a matter of minutes, the vast expanse of sand, the tide, still receding, was already a mile out, would be left to the seagulls that would soon be flocking in their hordes to forage for the scraps of food left by the picnickers. Then the orange ball of the sun would hiss down into the sea, and the beach would for a while be entirely deserted, until, under cover of darkness, the prowling lovers would come to writhe briefly, grittily, in the dark corners between the bathing huts and the seawall." End quote. I mean, this could be F. Scott Fitzgerald, Tender as the Night. Beautiful writing, and there's a lot of it throughout this book. So I just wanted to give you a little taste of that. So we've set the scene. Bond is now captured. He's in this boat going upriver with this mysterious woman. And then we do a flashback to the last 24 hours. Very Batman Begins. We start, and then we flash back to fill in the story. So the flashback is Bond in a hotel room at the Casino Royale, and he's writing his resignation letter. And we see the resignation letter. The resignation letter is the chapter. So the resignation letter itself tells us what's been going on in Bond's life since Thunderball. So Thunderball was the first meeting with Blofeld. Whatever world-ending plot was foiled, but Blofeld escaped. So M has tasked Bond with finding Blofeld, and he's been looking for about a year, and he can't find him. So Bond complains, give me another 00 assignment. I'm not an investigator. You've got me chasing all over the world, this guy. Enough is enough. And M said, you have to find Blofeld. He's your mission. So Bond writes this resignation letter saying, I can't find him. He's disappeared. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, my services are no longer needed, right? So he writes this letter. And I think he sends it, actually. Then he's driving along the winding roads in that part of town, and some red car races by, and they have this wonderful car race, and it's a woman, and we don't know who she is, but I think she has this wonderful red dress, and so she beats him as they're going in and out of the towns, and he loses the race, and he wonders who she is. He gets to the town and he goes to visit the grave of Vesper Lynd. So there's a little bit of continuity here from I think the very first Bond novel. It's very close to, if you've seen the recent Casino Royale film with Daniel Craig, follows the novel pretty well. And Vesper Lynd does die at the end of that. And I think in the Casino Royale novel, same. So some interesting continuity. He goes to her grave while he's there. So that night, Bond goes to the casino to play baccarat, right? The James Bond of the books is a baccarat player, not poker. This is all about baccarat. And I think even the Casino Royale novel, I'm not positive, but the game is baccarat, not Texas Hold'em. I don't think Texas Hold'em existed in 1963. So Bond's playing. It's wonderful. He won a ton of money, then he lost a ton, and he's up and he's smoking a cigarette and so on and so forth. It's great. Then all of a sudden, Tracy enters. He doesn't know her name is Tracy yet. Anyway, her name is the Contessa Teresa di Vincenzo. That's her character's name, and Bond later winds up calling her Tracy, very English to make mundane a beautiful name like Contessa Teresa di Vincenzo, right? So she sits down to play baccarat, and very, very reckless, loses a ton of money. And they come to collect, she doesn't have it. So Bond gallantly decides to, cover her bets, as it were, because it's a big deal. I guess back then it was a big affair of honor, as it were. If you defaulted on your bet, you can never play there again. Other casinos would blacklist you, and you were done. So Bond, being a player, recognizes that. And so then, unfortunately, this is a very cliched thing. He basically walks up to her afterwards, basically having bought her for the night. And she is a very reckless character. She's like, she doesn't even argue. She's like, here's my room key, be there in an hour, right? So he's like, all right. So he goes, right? And there's just some very funny, very retrograde dialogue. Tracy very much is sort of, a woman written from a man's point of view, right? So they're about to have sex. Bond comes to the room, they're ready to go. And this is Tracy talking. So, quote, I said no conversation. Take off those clothes. Make love to me. You are handsome and strong. I want to remember what it can be like. Do anything you like and tell me what you like and what you would like from me. Be rough with me. Treat me like the lowest whore in creation. Forget everything else. No questions. Take me. End quote. So, yeah. Oh, Ian Fleming. So anyway, Bond has sex with her. But at the end, she boots his butt. She kicks him out afterwards. They do what they do. It's not very well narrated. But he throws her, she throws him out when it's over. So a very dramatic moment there between the two of them. So that's the story. Now we rejoin Bond. He's going back upriver. He gets to this small town. He's taken to this place, and he winds up freeing himself from his captors, and slams the door in this room, turns around, and there's this guy there, and he's got a gun on him. And the guy says, you can kill me, but just give me an hour to kind of explain, Mr. Bond, so the guy knows who he is, right? So turns out that this guy is the head of the Union Corse, which I think is the mafia in Italy. So he's, the head of this incredible, crime syndicate. And Tracy, this Teresa, is his daughter. So we get this whole backstory The guy's name is Mark-Ange Draco, and so the whole backstory is that this guy got married. They had Tracy, his only daughter. The mother died, and she's been pampered and had a really rough childhood. And now she's rich and kind of living this profligate life. So what happened was, I think she got married to a not so great guy, had a child, and then the guy bailed, so they got divorced. And then 6 months before the time of the novel, the child dies. So she's kind of on, and the father kind of knows it, she's kind of on this suicide trip. Like, she's the daughter's death was like all she had in the world. And she's on her way down. So in very retrograde fashion, these two men decide what to do with Tracy, you know. So the head of the union court says, listen, I'll pay you $5 million or whatever to marry her, because she speaks well of you and you did an honorable thing in saving her from dishonor, right? So these two guys are kind of machoing it up. And Bond's like, I'm not marrying, I don't need the money, and I'm not marrying your daughter. Sorry, buddy. And he's like, well, at least have dinner with her. You know, she really likes you, and it would be good for her. So Bond, light bulb goes off in Bond's head, like, okay, no money. I'll have dinner with your daughter, but you got to do me a favor. You know, use your resources to find Blofeld. So he's still, still trying to do his job. So he has a brief dinner with Tracy. It's not narrated very much. And Draco gets back to him. They find Blofeld. It's a big deal. So he's in Switzerland. And so Bond goes back to London, and he cooks up this scheme. Blofeld basically is in Switzerland, and he's appealed to the British College of Arms, saying that he thinks he's Count de Blofeld, and he wants to reclaim his lands and titles and become a titled landed gentry, I guess, of England. So Bond cooks up this scheme that he's going to pose as a College of Arms. Now his coincidence, the de Blofelds had no earlobes, right? So they cook up the scheme that Bond will pose as a College of Arms guy, and he'll go to this, Blofeld's got this spa at the top of the ski mountain, this mountain in the Swiss Alps. And he'll pose as this guy to go there and say, well, I have to come and ask you some questions, and I need to verify some physical characteristics to see if you're this guy. So they spend chapters and chapters, you go through. Fleming is kind of like a prototypical techno-thriller novelist in a way. He does a lot of research. For the good Bond novels, he does a lot of research, and he'll pack it into the chapters. So the College of Arms chapters, you're pretty much getting a primer in how all this works in England, and how titles and family and all this stuff works. And it's kind of interesting. It also kind of goes on a bit too long. M approves the plan, and off Bond goes to this Swiss chalet in Switzerland. So I'll pause in the narrative because I don't want to spoil anything more for, the main story hasn't really happened yet. It was all set up. So I'll pause here and I'll continue on with that more detailed critique, but I'll stay in the non-spoiler arena and just kind of talk about the impression the book gave on me. So first of all, the James Bond of the Fleming novels is a very different animal from the James Bond in the films. He's less Johnny-go action all the time. He's much more, there's a lot of just cool, a lot of conversations in bars and cafes, and Bond sizing things up and planning things out. It's much more of a spy, it's much more spycraft in a way. He's much more the gentleman spy. There's no gadgets. He doesn't have exploding pens and watches and stuff. And also he's much more sophisticated. Like, he's a gourmand. He really knows food well, and and especially in the settings when he's in French Riviera, you'll have Fleming, of course, I think was a gourmand as well. You'll have these descriptions of the food Bond gets. Most of these fancy French dishes, he knows them very well, and he had a bottle of Bollinger. You get a little bit of that in the movies. With the drink, obviously, with the martini, and a little bit with the champagne, but more in the novel, much more in the novel. Bond. He's very cold. He's not as funny. Obviously, the Bond in the films has a sense of humor. Ian Fleming's Bond, not as funny. He's much more cold, much more direct, and businesslike for the most part. So I really kind of like the Bond of the books. Really much more interesting. And here's the thing. What makes kind of Bond more complex now is that obviously Bond's attitude towards women is pretty terrible. The women in these books are really either femme fatales or they're being used for sex, and he's trading favors. There's some other things that go on later in the book, which I'll get to, where he's kind of lawing his way into women's beds by playing on their emotions and playing on their hopes and stuff. It's really creepy, but in a way, it kind of makes Bond a more complex character now, because it's funny when you have a hero in books where a very complicated character. Usually the negatives that make up the complicated are not really bad negatives, right? Well, he's complicated. He's kind of a drinker, or he's kind of this or kind of that. The negatives that authors use to make their characters complicated are not ones that we really don't like. The kind of ones where we're like, wow, yeah, I lost his kid, or got fired, and he really made a bad call on the job in that one moment. But in this one, Bond's complicated because, his attitudes towards women is terrible. And it's interesting because, you like the character, but, he really now in 2021, right? He really has some very outmoded attitudes towards women, and ethnicities, frankly. There are also, I've read a few of these now. And, there's the ethnicity problem as well. But you still like Bond. So it really is complicated. And I think it makes for a more interesting character because he's unapologetically politically incorrect. And it just makes it like, this is kind of fascinating, actually, because I don't forgive certain things, but kind of makes him more human, really, if you think about it. So, yeah, that was very interesting. So, yeah, versus the movies, again, lots of research. Chapter by chapter, there's some plot here involving hypnotherapy, germ warfare, and there's a lot of information in there, especially when they're figuring out Blofeld's plot near the end of the book. They're using a lot of technical language, and you can tell Fleming did a lot of research. So really interesting in that way. And the action sequences are fantastic. And here's the thing. They're nothing different than, there's two action sequences in this book. Both of them are chases down a mountain. One, Bond's on skis. The other one is a bobsled race. And, if you saw them in the movies, how many movies have we seen James Bond on ski chases with Spectre behind him trying to shoot him? And you're like, that's when you go get popcorn. They tend to be very boring, especially the Roger Moore era when, he was on a blue screen. Very fake looking. But Fleming's power as a writer makes scenes like that in the book come alive. So there's the first scene when he's having an adventure up there. I won't spoil it. It's riveting. It was riveting, and then when I was done reading it, I realized I had plowed through like 10 pages, and but it was just that. It was just this kind of an action sequence. So Fleming is no joke. Like, he's a really good writer. A really good popular writer, I will say. Very, very, very impressed with that, actually. And so lastly, I'll talk a little bit about the film. I just recently saw the George Lazenby film, which is probably why I picked this up as my first Bond novel. I did not like it. I did not like Lazenby as Bond. I thought the action sequences were not well directed. It didn't have the zip and the style of the Connery and Moore Bonds and forward. It didn't feel like a Bond movie. It felt like an action movie, a very slow action movie, actually. This has some really intense ending, one of the most intense endings of a Bond book, and the movie held to the ending, but I didn't feel like the film deserved it. So I finally got around to seeing the Lazenby Bond, and I was totally not a fan. So okay, from here on I'm going to do some spoiling, and if you haven't read the book or if you haven't seen the movie, you don't know what happens, you don't want it ruined, please pause the video and thank you very much for listening. All right, so now we're into spoilers. So some other interesting things here. So the big Blofeld plot, when it's revealed, okay, is that it's kind of odd. It's a little convoluted, but Blofeld has gone underground. He's gotten a facelift to look like the Blueveil character, and his big plot is to put news advertisements in newspapers to get women who have allergies to poultry, farm animals, to come there and have their allergies removed, right? Have their taken away, basically, and then guaranteed jobs when it's done. So he brings them there. He uses hypnotherapy to cure them of their allergies to chicken and fowl and fish. And then when they're done, he's procured jobs for them, I think, or they may, I'm trying to remember, they may get jobs in the industry when they get back. When they go back, he's going to give them these germ warfare samples. And his whole idea is to like destroy England's, agricultural and livestock, to completely wipe it out. Because they, after the war, I guess this is written in the 60s, it's going to destroy their economy, right? It's bizarre, it's ridiculous kind of plot. Like the U.S. wouldn't help to, other countries wouldn't step in to help them. So that's the plot. So Bond finds out. But what is cool is you don't know that until the very end of the book. When Bond escapes, again, the first action sequence is narrated. Bond escapes downhill on skis. Incredible. Tracy winds up rescuing him, which is pretty deus ex machina. And it turns out that, she found out he was there by asking her father and whatever. So it's a little coincidental. But he goes back to England and he lays out, well, this is what I found. This is what I saw. What do you guys think? So they get guys from fish and agriculture to come in. And they put their heads together and they're all trying to figure it out. And it's a good couple of chapters where they're trying to figure it out. And then when they do, they start getting into very detailed, technical jargon of, biological warfare and how this could be done, which is very interesting. And he did a great job with it, I think. So that was kind of fun. There's also a scene where one of Bond's fellow agents is captured, someone who's like second head of station in that area. And Blofeld, and he's in with Blofeld now as this fake Hillary Bray guy. And they bring this other agent in. And the agent, horrible fieldcraft. Oh, James, thank God you're here. Tell him who I am. And of course, Bond doesn't break character. And they wind up killing the guy. And he doesn't try to save him. He doesn't try to rescue him. Like, it's some cold stuff. It's some pretty cold stuff going on, But I like that. Again, it makes Bond a more interesting character. Like, he doesn't figure out some way to like talk his way out of it or like use gadgets and get the guy out. The guy gets killed. They throw him off the mountain or something. So I like that. I thought that was really cold stuff. And then the amazing thing, what I really liked about this book is that he falls in love with Tracy. They fall in love with each other and they get married. They actually get married. And then she's killed. I mean, that is some hardcore. And I realized that this is the second book that Bond loses someone that I think he cares for. Because I think in Casino Royale, I think him and Vesper Lynd like the film. They become close at the end, and then she winds up having to betray him because of complications, but then she dies. But I think he also had fallen for her at the time. So this is the second time that Bond goes kind of almost all the way with somebody, and they get killed. So very tragic ending. Really blew me away. And it's I'll read a little bit of it. The last kind of paragraph. It's from the point of view of the cop. They're driving away on their honeymoon, and folks from Spectre drive by and just blast Tracy in the passenger seat, and she's dead on arrival. The car rolls over, but Bond's fine. And the cop comes up to the window, and Bond's like with Tracy, like, don't worry, honey. We have all the time in the world, right? And the cop's looking at them like, oh, man. So last line of the book, we've got all the time in the world, which seems to be a classic, title for a Bond film, frankly. But that ending was really something. It was really, it gave the book a little more poignancy. For all its ups and downs, it's popular fiction, but it was something. So now some criticisms about it. Again, Bond buying Tracy for the night because he paid baccarat, and her being just, rape me, use me, I'm trash. Like, okay, that was not so great. When Bond's in the spa, it's filled with these beautiful women who are getting treated, right? And he, of course, befriends one, but he uses his pose as a, member of the College of Arms to kind of, he starts asking some of these women, oh, what is your last name? Oh, maybe you're related to someone famous, or maybe you're royalty. And so, of course, he hooks up this one woman, Ruby, and they have these discussions, and she's like, do you think really I'll be, you think really I'll be related to someone famous or royalty? Oh, I'm almost certain of it, And they're in bed and about to have sex, and she's like, "Do you love me a little, James?" He's like, "They're there," and they have sex, and it's just like, oh man, it's creepy, But again, it's that part of him that's like, yeah, this is, this is part of his character, like it or not, So, the heraldry chapter is boring. It really is. Once you kind of get a little bit of it, one interesting tidbit is kind of fun, is that you find out the Bond. And I wanted to save this for the spoiler section because it's kind of fun. The Bond family motto, because when Bond goes to the College of Arms, they look up his real family anyway. He says, "Did you know the motto of your family is the world is not enough?" So, hello Bond movie, right? So that's right from here, from this book. So it's kind of fun. The Bond motto, world is not enough. Tracy saving him when he skis downhill from the chalet, very coincidental. Yeah, so, but overall, I really enjoyed it, and I think mostly because Bond's really complicated and good, and tough and an interesting character and a good character to follow. He's exciting, and Fleming is a wonderful writer. He's just a good English writer, really good sentences. You're in the hands of someone who knows what he's doing, and that was a pleasure. So I've read recently You Only Live Twice, which is the third Blofeld novel, which ends the trilogy. So I'm going to review that. And I just finished Man with the Golden Gun, so I'll review that. And then I'm going to probably continue through and read all the Bond Fleming books because I'm really loving them. So, yeah, so I hope you like the show. And down in the show notes, I'm going to put the link to the Rambling Raconteur. First of all, his booktube is fantastic. And second of all, he goes through every single Bond book and gives you a little bit of a brief blurb about it. So, yeah, it's kind of a bookshelf tour, so you have to find it. Maybe I'll figure out what where the time number is, and I'll put it down there. But anyway, thanks for watching.